Welcome to episode number 5 of Wrestling with the Mind, a podcast where we explore the world of mental health. My name is Matt Sigmund, health coach by day, professional wrestler by night. Today I'm excited to bring a chat to you with Marilyn Murray. She's a community advocate for mental health and a grad student of Emory and Henry. She has been a true supporter of this podcast since we launched, and I'm excited to have a talk with her today. Before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. I received so much wonderful feedback from the chat with Jimmy Jacobs. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Visit wrestlingmind.com to go back and listen to that through your favorite podcast service, whether that be Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. We're pretty much all over the place at this point. Before we do dive into today's chat, many of you have been enjoying kicking off the podcast with some guided meditation, so I thought we could continue that trend today. So take a deep breath in, let it out slowly. Close your eyes and allow your mind and body to relax as we begin the guided meditation. Bring your attention to the present moment. Let go of any thoughts or worries about the past or future. Just be here in this moment, breathing in peace, breathing out stress. Repeat these affirmations to yourself, allowing them to sink into your mind and body. I am worthy. I am deserving of peace and happiness. I am capable of overcoming any challenges that come my way. Visualize a scene that brings you peace and calm. It could be a sunset over the ocean, a mountain, or a field of flowers. Imagine yourself in this scene feeling calm, relaxed, and at peace. Take a few moments to focus on the things in your life that you are grateful for. These could be people, experiences, or things. Allow yourself to feel a deep sense of gratitude for all that you have in your life. Take one final deep breath in and let it out slowly. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Now let's dive into our chat with Marilyn Murray. All right, I'm sitting down here with Marilyn Murray. Marilyn, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, it's midweek. It's been a beautiful weather here in Tennessee. I'm kind of soaking that up while I can before we probably dip back into cold weather again. The groundhog said last week, I think, that 6 more weeks of winter for us all. So getting prepped for that, and but riding the wave. It's good. It's good for the moment. Thank you, number one, for cutting some time out of your day to join us, especially last minute, because I had a wrestling-related guest on here. He had to push out, and so you hopped on board last minute here, saving me on the podcast this week. And you're somebody I've wanted to talk to for a long time because you are actually involved in the field of mental health. So I'm excited to chat with you here today. For those who might not know you, if you could give just a little bit of a background on yourself.
My name is Marilyn Murray. I am in my grad program at Emory and Henry's Health and Science College in Marion, Virginia. And then for work right now, I do work with some of the most severely mentally ill clients and try to help them learn how to do basically just daily coping skills and help them navigate their day.
It's wonderful, and it's wonderful that you take your time and you're finding value in this profession to help those who are struggling from day to day with the challenges around mental illness and mental health.
Yes, I'm an advocate for mental health. I think that should be something normalized. It's like going to the doctor for a cold.
Absolutely, and you know, that's something that I'm using this podcast to do, is raise awareness around mental health and the challenges that people face, as well as, you know, inspirational stories and ways that people can help improve their mental health and find a good balance with things throughout life. I come from professional wrestling background, but we're trying to get all people in here from all walks of life. This is not just about pro wrestling. This is about people in general and trying to build a strong community here. So thank you for helping us as we build this. And you're somebody, I've picked your brain a little bit here. Before we were kind of getting the podcast going week to week, I'm sending you questions and getting thoughts and ideas. So you've been supportive since day one. So I want to say thank you for that as well.
Oh, thank you.
When we look at mental health, and this answer is something that is different for everybody, but what does good mental health look like for you?
Well, for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different, but for me, it's going to be more of my days balanced somewhat. I have a little bit of self-care in my day. I'm extremely busy because I do work full time and I go to school full time and I'm disabled. So I've got kind of a triple whammy going on there. But for me, it's getting enough sleep. That's usually my number one thing is the sleep part of it and getting enough sleep and then trying to just keep myself in a good place. If I notice certain things creeping up, maybe I feel overwhelmed a lot, or I'm not getting enough sleep, or it could even be from food consumption. Maybe I'm eating maybe not the healthiest choices.
Mm-hmm.
That's a direct sign that I need to probably back up a little bit and reevaluate what's going on to make sure everything is
Yeah.
balanced a little.
And it's funny, you mentioned sleep, and sleep is so important to just our overall body function, recovery and healing. But it's something that I actually talked about a few weeks ago a little bit with a good friend of mine, Tim Storm, and we were chatting about how important sleep is to just each of us individually. In terms of just overall mental health, how important do you feel that sleep component is?
I think that overall mental health, I try to get 8 to 9 hours every night of sleep because whenever it's funny, I've got this new smartwatch. I don't know how to use it yet, but it tracks my sleep schedule and it shows me how much deep sleep I'm in, how much, REM. Your body is literally repairing every cell when you sleep. So when you deny yourself that, either by using stimulants like coffee, sometimes that can get into even harder things. That could really just actually reprograms the whole brain and how it functions. And that's where things like depression can start creeping in, insomnia. But it really helps center your brain. It needs to reset. It needs that sleep time to kind of just reprogram and heal your body. Your whole
Mm-hmm.
body reacts to that.
I know for me, after especially training, fitness come into play for myself and many other people in my profession side of things, and that just the healing factor of sleep on that end, just being able to recover from some of the workouts we do, some of the matches that we have, and then mentally, I'm juggling my health coaching job, I do the wrestling, which takes me all around the world, and then I get to be a husband and a father to a 4-year-old. And so my mental load throughout the day can get quite heavy at sometimes. And if I'm going on anything less than 6 hours of sleep, I'm paying for it on the back end for sure. And I notice a big difference in just the way I feel throughout the day. My ability to process thoughts and just being able to navigate some of the challenges that come along with that for sure. So you mentioned sleep. What do you feel are some other important areas of self-care that people should really pay attention to on their mental health journey?
Well, I think the biggest thing I see people not do is when they have issues, they don't talk to someone about it. And they may talk to a family member, but sometimes those family members can be part of that problem. So it's not as helpful. Like a professional, if you've broken your arm, you probably wouldn't go to your father and going, "Hey, fix this back for me." I mean, you might, but you probably wouldn't get the best results. So a lot of people, I don't know why there is the stigma about talking to a mental health professional, and that can be so beneficial. And I see, and I don't mean this in any kind of way, but I do see more women
Mm.
is more open to it than men are, and I don't know if it's maybe just our area that can be seen as maybe a weakness per se,
Mm-hmm.
but that's something I'm trying to advocate for. Is that it's so important though to have that avenue to be able to discuss that with somebody and talk about those things, especially if you are an athlete and you get hurt.
Hmm.
because there can be more trauma like PTSD that comes with that, depression, insomnia. And then when you go to do your next game or your next round, whatever you're doing, it's in your head. It didn't go away.
Yeah.
It's just kind of stuck there, and you've not dealt with that. There's a really great book out called, and I'm not plugging this for anybody, but it's called the Body Keeps Score. I'm trying
Okay.
to think of the name of that author, but in that book, it discusses how if you don't handle your mental health, it'll come out in other ways. Like you'll start having back problems, you'll start having shoulder aches, like the literally stress. All that can go through the body and just
Hmm.
really cause damage. Let's see, Sean Pratt and Bezel Vanderkolk. That's who wrote that book. Sorry, I had to, I was trying to remember, but that's who wrote that book.
Yeah.
It's a really good read about past, and it can be anything from trauma too.
Hmm.
When you don't deal with a lot of things that you're going through mentally, old wounds can start opening up again as well, and then that can
Absolutely.
cause major damage. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned how women seem to be more open, and I don't know statistics on this, right? I haven't researched this, but in general, it does appear that way that men tend to be, and I think it's that masculine mindset. I'm tough. I'm a man. I don't need help. We don't like help anyway when it comes to just doctors, like you were saying. We'll just kind of tape it up and walk on, and but we don't
Yeah.
take into account how serious it could be. And then in wrestling, the mental health aspect has been so challenging over the years. You look, and it's improving. I'll say that it is improving. But you look at years back to guys who were performing in the '60s, '70s, '80s, early '90s. Mental health was not anything that they were thinking about, much less their health in general. They thought they were invincible and on top of the world, and not prioritizing any form of self-care in terms of being healthy mentally. We've had a high amount of suicide in professional wrestling. There are super strains on relationships and friendships that if they would have reached out for some form of support or help, some of it could have been prevented. Maybe not all of it, situationally, but there is help out there. Even then, there has been help out there, and people just don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, or feel like they're a burden on somebody. And I'm hoping that we are turning the corner on that and being able to get to a point where we can be open to rely on outside help.
Yeah, and the thing is, I always tell people is like if you have a brain, you have mental health. Now, sometimes I might not have used my brain, but you know, the thing is, if you do have a brain, you do have mental health, and
Yeah.
and that's super important thing to know. You cannot separate the two.
Hmm. And on the brain itself, with wrestling or any kind of contact sport, that is another thing that is a kind of a hot issue over the last few years with concussions. And the impact that has on just the brain's ability to operate optimally, and our thinking patterns and our judgments. There's a lot more research on it now that's coming out in a lot of places in wrestling and football and any kind of contact sport. They're getting concussion protocols in place for when those situations do happen, and how to rehabilitate as best as possible from them. That's something that I'm starting to take more serious as well, and just trying to be protective of my health and my brain because I don't want to be 50 years old and forgetting who my daughter is, or having my judgment impaired on life decisions based on something silly I've done.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole thing. Like, especially when you hit to like the prefrontal. I mean that the prefrontal cortex controls a lot of your personality,
Mm.
and that's sometimes when people go through an injury like that, people's like you've changed, and they have because it's just like the brain's kind of trying to rewire itself to work appropriately. But that can, that in injury alone, that's something I've been studying this week is like the opiate addiction.
Mm.
That's a huge thing right now where people get hurt. And, for a long time, up till a few years ago, they were prescribing opiates over and over and over again. And your addiction rates got higher and higher and higher. And then that caused a whole nother set of issues that came up. But still, no one was really talking about the problems from the trauma that caused it. That's where
So
we're missing the boat at.
yeah, so true. And the opioid epidemic is something that has also impacted pro wrestling and sports, entertainment too, just all around music, whatnot.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And there's some really good documentaries on just the impact it's had outside of sports, just in general on communities and environments and things. That is another thing that has been cracked down on, and knowledge has been given to us in the wrestling community on opioid addiction. There are so many wrestlers who would go through injuries, and at the time it was, hey, I'm hurt today, but there's still a show tomorrow. And so instead of taking time off to heal and recover, guys would take opioids to push through the pain. And then over time, it'd be like, well, I got to make the next town. I got to make the next town. I got to make the next town. And then that addiction would kick in. And then next thing you know, some of these guys, and they're open about it too, for the most part now, because there is such awareness around it. But some of these guys were taking upwards of 50, 60 Lortabs a day, and just untelling what it's done to their system and just decreasing their lifespan in general. But yeah. I'm so glad that that's becoming less of a problem and more focus on help for those situations.
Yeah.
What do you wish more people understood about mental health in general?
I think the one thing about mental health is it's a very holistic approach. It takes your mind and body into consideration when trying to heal you. The medical model is made just more for the focus of, oh, you've broken your arm, let's put that in a cast and now it's better. They don't ever take into effect, a lot of times they may recommend counseling, but they don't take into effect how that arm got broken. I think the more that we quit, separating the brain from the body, and we treat the person as a whole, the more help we can actually start getting each other. And the more we can be like, oh, okay, you're going to go see your therapist. That's wonderful. It's going to be more of a positive regard, not a negative. And, a lot of those conversations, the negative aspect of that came about, in the early 1900s when you had, they used to use the C word if you weren't mentally well, which was crazy. And, and that stigma has stuck around for so many years. I just don't really understand now, as educated as we can be, and with our resources and research that we have right at our fingertips, that we can't understand that mental health, all of us suffer from that, and all of us can thrive from that if we learn how to kind of find out the places of us that we may need a little help with and work on that, and then celebrate the areas that we're doing very well in, because it's kind of the thing too. Is previously I used to dance. That was my exercise. That was my love. That was my passion. I mean, salsa, belly dance, Zumba, you name it, I did it. I associated myself with dance, that I was a dancer. And then when I lost both my knees and had that bilateral knee replacement with nerve damage that came from that, it changed everything. I could no longer dance. And I mean, I was sitting there going, now what? What do I do now? Who am I? I didn't know who I was, because I've installed all of my worth into that one thing. And I know like my sister's a professional athlete. A lot of times they do really get wrapped up in that, this is me, I'm an athlete, But I think another thing is to maybe for people to learn more of other things that they are, not just one thing. Because that way we're a little bit more balanced, and we're not putting all of our self-worth into this one thing. When that fails us, then what are we? And it took me a couple years to really find something else I could be passionate about and really dig into. And I found that helping others is what fed my soul. Dancing before fed my ego, but now I was feeding my soul. And it's a completely different level of how you start feeling about yourself.
That's powerful.
And you start looking at, and that's what happened to me. And that's how I even got on this path. If my knees hadn't failed, then I wouldn't be now trying to help others. And it's kind of like that whole, I found something else that I could find value in. And then helping others help me.
Wrestlers go through that a whole lot too. We have this, and it's an addiction, right? So when you are in the wrestling business, it is an addiction because you are feeding off a different environment and a crowd every night. And to go out there and all of the focus in an entire arena or an entire room is on you, and you have that ability to control their emotions based on the story you're telling, that it hooks you. There is an adrenaline rush that is second to none, and we get hooked into it. And so then we start identifying, hey, I am a professional wrestler. And that's all you want to be. That's all you want to do. That's all you think about 24/7. And there's nothing wrong with that drive and determination, right? But then
Correct.
you have guys who did not look at any other aspects of life, and then you get to an age where your body can't hold up really with wrestling anymore, but then you have no sense of purpose, and then it leads down some dark paths for a lot of people too. Or an injury takes you out maybe a year in to a young career, and then you're still in that same boat of who am I now? What can I do? And just finding that other avenue of something you can be passionate about, in addition to whatever field you're in, whether that be entertainment or the medical field or teaching, whatever it may be, just finding some alternate paths that you can also be passionate about and proud about and focus work on, I think is very important for keeping a good balance when it comes to our mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I found that out kind of when I literally landed on my face uh, from that injury,
Mm,
and I should have went to therapy then and counseling because I had PTSD from I fell on my replacement 3 days after surgery, so
okay.
it was really intense, and
Yeah.
then I was in the wheelchair for a year and couldn't walk at all. So a lot of things just happened. I went from being this athlete dancer to gaining 100 and some pounds in a wheelchair
Hmm.
and really losing who my sense of purpose was. So, I had to learn at rock bottom how to reinvent myself, and I did. And then I decided to enroll myself in counseling after that darkest part of my life. But honestly, during that darkest parts when I found probably my brightest conviction of what I wanted to do in my life.
Mm.
And so sometimes not all the bad is bad. There's you never know what's right around that corner. And if you're always open to learning new skills and learning new things in your life, then I think you can become a very balanced person, and be mentally happy.
I would agree with that. I look at every day as an opportunity to expand my knowledge, learn something new, and figure out another way to grow and help others at the same time. And so that makes life so much more interesting for me. I find it
Mhm.
highly rewarding to do so. Now, you say that you're on this good path now. You are in a place where you have that passion, that purpose, you're driven. There are still days for all of us where we do have setbacks. When those happen to you, how do you deal with those? How do you manage with those setbacks?
Some days it requires just something as simple as more sleep. That's something I found out. I gave up after my darkest time. I quit drinking. I only drink water now and coffee, so I don't enjoy adult beverages anymore because I found that caused more depression.
Okay.
Let's see. I do have a counselor I still see on a regular basis. I cannot tell you how amazing that is. And Emory and Henry, the school, provides us with free counseling as students. So that's just a phenomenal thing that college does. That would cost me normally, it could cost me, a little bit of money. Most insurance though now covers it, which is wonderful.
Hmm.
They just passed a new act for veterans that, before they don't allow social workers to give them counseling, and now they're allowing the licensed professional counselors to do that. So that's been like a real nice benefit for veterans that they can get any kind of counseling they need when they need it. There's not really a set limit on those anymore.
And that's
So,
wonderful. There's also like a lot of jobs now are throwing in at least something like BetterHelp or an
mhm,
online service to where it's cost efficient for them to a degree, but it also provides most of their workers with a little bit of mental help, mental health help is what I was trying to say,
yeah.
just in the long run. And I think that is a wonderful benefit that most companies, if not all, should have if possible.
And I learned like some other coping skills. You're going to laugh at maybe a couple of these, but sometimes, of course, I'm very girly, so I'll do the whole, facial thing if I want to. But other things I do is I journal. I find journaling extremely helpful. Journaling's good. I just found out a few weeks ago I enjoy adult coloring books
Mm.
where you use coloring pens, and I
Yeah.
was actually working with a client. I'd never done it before. And I was like, I'm really relaxed. It was
Hmm.
it was interesting. But
My
it was a
wife
good.
swears by those. She loves those coloring books for adults.
You should
Just
try it one day.
yeah.
Seriously, it's great. It's great. Of course, I do still try to exercise some. I can't walk very far, but I do try
Hmm.
to walk. And, I used to love to lift, and I still do a little bit of that as I can. So, exercise is probably one of the most underrated um, forms of, you know, antidepressants. It's natural,
I would
I
agree.
think.
Outside of the ring, so in the wrestling
Yeah.
ring is where I feel optimal. That's my 100%. That's where I am me, and I feel my best. Right.
Yeah.
Outside of that, being in the gym and just getting a workout in, even if it's not a good workout, if I'm just at least in
Mhm.
there doing something, that's when I'm feeling my best throughout the day. And that's why I start my morning off now. I've shifted my schedule around, and I start my morning off now at the gym just so I can be mentally prepared for whatever the day might bring. And I used to settle down. That used to be my end of the day routine. And
Mhm.
now, where with my job with health coaching, similar to therapy and things, I'm talking to people and they're going through challenges, whatever it might be with their health, and we're working through them together. And I take on a lot of that stress. I've noticed I'll
Mhm.
the empathy side of me will bring a lot of that on, and I feel it throughout the day. But if I start my day with a workout, then I feel so much better throughout the day, and I feel like I'm able to help my clients so much better as well as the day goes on.
Yeah, we call that transference and countertransference. Whenever you're working with a client, they can transfer those emotions onto you. And then countertransference, so maybe when I'm modeling something and I can transfer that back over to them.
Yeah.
So they can actually pick up a good habit, per se, or or I can repeat back and be a mirror for them to understand what they're saying.
I appreciate so much you cutting time out of your day to join me here. Before we do wrap up, any advice you would give people just in general, or any parting thoughts you want to leave with those listening who might be going through a little bit of a challenging time?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. There is a new number called 988. It is the basically the 911 for mental health. So if you're ever having a crisis, please reach out to them. Do not, um, I won't ever tell anybody what to do, but they have some wonderful resources that can assist them in a actual mental health crisis. It's called 988. It's really wonderful. There's also a lot of suicide prevention hotlines out there that they can also call. Of course, 911 can always help. And then, there's also other free resources and services in their community. So if they're ever struggling, some people are struggling from things like socioeconomic needs and things like that. And there's free food pantries, there's free laundries. There's a lot of things like that that they can also get assistance with if they need that as well. And, if less, just talk to a friend. If you really don't want to talk to a professional, at least talk to somebody. Just talk to a trusted friend or a trusted colleague or someone that, you can, have an honest conversation with where you're at. So maybe they can give you some feedback or give you the assistance that you do need.
Wonderful, wonderful. And a lot of those services are offered in areas that people don't even know that they are offered.
Hmm.
And so I encourage whoever's listening to look at what is available to you locally, because there are some really good services out there in your communities nearby that you might not even be aware of yet. So where can we find you? Anything you'd like to plug? Where can we connect?
Let's see. I'm on Facebook. Marilyn Murray the third. I'm on there. Let's see. I'm on LinkedIn as Marilyn Murray. And that's about all I have right now. I'm working on that side of it. You might have to help me with that part of it,
Okay.
because I would like to start doing more mental health, maybe different issues.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And I would love to have you on going down the line from time to time as we dive into this journey and help raise awareness around mental health and the good and the bad of it all.
all right. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you had me on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I would like to thank Marilyn yet again for coming on today and sharing a little bit of her story with us. I also want to thank you guys for tuning in. I encourage you all to check out WrestlingMind.com for all the latest updates for the show. Please go to your favorite podcast downloader. Subscribe if you haven't done so far. Leave us some reviews. It helps us branch us out and grow as we aim to help others on their mental health journey. Also, be sure to check out our social media pages, share our posts, help us get the word out to others who could benefit from listening to this. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week.